So I started kind of just thinking like, hey, if I don't ask them for the business, somebody else would. I went from like having one escrow, right? And I luckily I opened 9 escrows and got 2 listings with practicing the scripts and being more intentional.
Welcome to episode 11 of MIKE DROPP. Today I am here with Alfredo Bonola from California. Alfredo, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Perfect. So why don't you start off and tell people how long you've been in real estate?
So I've been in business and licensed since April 28th, 2021. So about 3 years and a half.
3 years and a half? Let me ask you something. What made you get into real estate?
Funny story. Like I went to school for business, but I always wanted to have a job where I could dress nice, right? So yeah, so I was like, hey, you know what? I don't want to do anything in the corporate world, so let me try out real estate. So actually, from my friend, he actually introduced me to the broker that I have now, and the rest is history.
Perfect. So what did you actually do before real estate?
I was actually barbering from like 15 years old all the way to like 23, so about like 8 years of my life barbering.
Gotcha. So what was it about being a barber that you said, you know what, I'm going to go from cutting hair to selling houses?
I'm gonna be honest. I think it's just I feel stuck. I feel stuck where I was at, and I always thought of like, hey man, I'm always hearing everybody's success stories. Getting their salary for 100K, and at that time, like that was untouchable for me. I never thought I would make that much, and I was like, you know what? I felt stuck. Same routine every single day, so I just decided to give it a try.
Sure. What does a barber in California make?
Um, I would say anywhere from like 60 to about 100K, but
Okay.
it was just tiring. It was just something that I was very tired of already. I felt stuck, so I just decided to let go.
Right. So tell me, when you think about real estate being a barber, what did you imagine real estate being? Because it's so funny what people think real estate is, and then they get in and they realize that it's probably a little bit different. So on the outside looking in, what did you think that a real estate agent did every single day?
Well, I'll be honest. I actually just thought that, hey, I'm gonna just open the door and every client I show, that's a deal right there. But I know it's a lot more to it.
Right. So tell me, what was your first year like in real estate?
First year I started officially started in May. From May to December, it was about 9 deals closed.
Okay,
Uh,
gotcha. And where did most of that business come from?
Centers of influence, most of my business. Yeah.
Gotcha. Did you ever do any kind of prospecting? I mean, obviously, most people start off either generating business prospecting. Some people go with the Buffini and start going through, their database and sphere of influence. What kind of training or what kind of activities did you do the first year?
Absolutely. So my first year, I want to say my first couple of deals, I want to say my first 2, 3 deals, they kind of just fell in my lap. I was telling everybody like all my centers of influence, like, hey, I'm doing real estate. Uh, yeah, the first one ever was a listing, and I didn't really start prospecting until one time my broker say, hey, you're getting very lucky right now with these deals, and you got to prospect. I'll be honest, I never really prospect back then. I would call an hour or so every other day. And not until I had that conversation with my brokers that when I got, started calling a little
Okay,
bit
well,
more.
obviously you're in a chair, you're talking to people. I mean, how was it different talking on the phone as sitting in a chair talking to people? Because a lot of people don't understand when you're talking to someone you can't see, it's a lot different than if you're in person talking to people. So, what was that experience like? How comfortable or uncomfortable were you picking up the phone?
I would say comfortable because a lot of the people I was calling at first was like nothing but the center of influence. So they were so used to me talking to them a certain way, right? Now, when I'm calling them, asking them for business, it was like a little bit awkward at first because I would have to change the tone of my voice and the exact, I had to be a little bit more proper more than anything. So
Did
that
you
would
feel,
made it.
did you feel uncomfortable asking for business?
I would say so 100% until I started kind of just thinking like, hey, if I don't ask them for the business, somebody else would. So I just
Well, that's
started kind of having that thought, that mentality.
Yeah, because I know so many real estate agents. When I talk to them, they say they call their database, and they do. But the one thing they don't do is they don't actually ask for referrals. You have to understand something. If you ask for referrals, you tend to get referrals. If you talk to people and have conversations, you typically get friends. See, so many real estate agents basically are people that are friendly, that are an agent. When
Mm-hmm.
really, in reality, what we need to be is we need to be real estate agents that can be friendly. Because if people look at us as friends first and not agents, who do you think they're going to give the business to?
Well, the people that are asking them for those referrals or business, yeah.
Right. So how hard was it to start talking to people outside of your database? Cold call, expired, for sale, owner. What was that like?
I would say the first couple months was very rough, right? Especially because either we had a quick little script, and I'll be honest, I was just reading the questions off the script, so it made it very. The tonality was a little off until I started getting in my own groove, taking those necessary pauses. So first couple months, it was a little hard. It was uncomfortable.
When did you finally start to think, you know what, like I can do it?
I would say when I think the breakthrough point was when I want to say in December of 2021, because I was like, man, if I could make this money during real estate, calling people, asking them for business, I was like, because I was always, I guess you can say, scared of letting the barbering go. So I was doing them both at the same time. So December of 2021, that's when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to go all in. So I was like, I could do this. So I'll make sure one way or another, I figure it out.
Was there times in that first or second year that you started having doubts, about did I make the right decision?
100%. I would say that the first month or so, it was a little hard because I was used to, making a little bit of change every day to not making anything. So I know I had to work my behind off.
Gotcha. And how did you keep your mindset? Because I think, one of the hardest parts in ascending in real estate is to make sure that you maintain a positive mindset. So how did you do that?
I would say just uh, for me, if I'm gonna be 100% honest, just having my family, like they're already used to me getting some awards, the checks I was getting. So I was like, I can't go back to the regular lifestyle. I think that's what made me positive and it made me a little bit more disciplined.
Gotcha. So what did your peer group look like then in terms of other agents you talked to? How did you get the accountability and so forth?
I would say my peer group, it consists of, well, one of them is your client, Mr. Jose Barraza. So
Mhm.
it was me and him. We started at the same time, and I guess you could say some other, like, I want to say I kept my circle very small to the people that had, were making ends meet with hitting their goals,
Mhm.
right? And then more than anything, I would say my broker. I would have to owe it to my broker, Ricardo. He was always on our behind because he seen that we were really trying to make something out of this, and then up to this day, he's still the. I want to say the accountability is super strict when it comes to get hitting those goals.
No, I think a lot of people don't have someone in their life that holds them accountable. One of the most important parts about becoming a good real estate agent is number one, having a good core peer group around you. And then obviously having people that are going to hold you accountable. So what was it like going up against Jose and going through the same process as him? Was it something of a competition or did you all kind of just use each other to kind of just inspire one another to keep going?
I would say it was more than anything inspiration, right? And then at first he was doing good, and then I picked it up. So it's kind of like always been like we're neck to neck, right, with each other. I wouldn't say competition too much, but more like inspirational, right? It's kind of like if you see somebody doing good, like I want to do good too. So it's I guess you could say a little bit of competition, but more than anything, I would say having inspiration for one another.
Right. So, what do you think were the two or three things your first 3 or 4 years that you really struggled with? Because I think there's so many agents out there that are struggling and they think, oh my God, it's just me.
I would say consistency, right? It's not just when you are making deals is when you should feel busy. And it's like you and I had the conversation of that danger zone, right? My thing was like, oh, okay, I have a couple deals in escrow. I'm chilling. Like, I won't have to call that much. But it's like you have to make it a every single day thing, start from zero every day. I think that's one of my, I guess you can say, things I'm working on, right? And another one is just calling the right people. You and I have that conversation. Like I was just calling a lot, but not getting a lot of results. So now, thanks to you, I'm calling more strategically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some people don't understand. I mean, calling with intention, making sure that you're calling the right people at the right time,
Yes,
is one of the most important components of being a successful salesperson.
absolutely.
So tell me something. What keeps you motivated at this stage of life?
I would say my family, right? My family, I feel like I got them used to a certain lifestyle already of like, hey, I can take care of certain things. My family, and more than anything, I would say you see everybody that's around me that has been able to accomplish great things. It just motivates me a lot. Like, hey, if they could do it, then I could do it as well, but in my own way, I would say.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So obviously, I've been working together with you for 2 months. To
Mhm.
take me back to the first, 9 months prior to us working together, what were some of the things that you personally were struggling with this year? Because I think that every market requires a different version of you. I did a video the other day, and I was telling us that most real estate agents right now, they need to do an update. It's time to update their minimum standards. It's time to update the amount of output they put in, and it's time to update their skills. Because if you take your output and the skills you did the last 3 or 4 years into this year, but the market changing with rates going from 3% to 8%, it's obviously challenging. So, what kind of challenges were you working through for the first 9 months before we started working together?
I will be honest. It was a lot of the consistency of the right group of people to call and the follow up, because I think that was my main thing. Like, hey, I was just focusing on let's work on the people that are ready now, and missing out on the business of not following up with the people that were needed just that little extra push.
Yeah.
Especially when I gave them a call, like I know you told me, like, hey, call them, and then they're like, hey, I already bought, already sold. That's like, man, So I think that was a struggle, but ever since I started working with you, everything's been going good so far.
Yeah. The thing is that, when I got into your database, like a lot of people, you had leads from all over the place, and not
Yeah,
just leads, people that you weren't calling. One of the biggest mistakes that I see so many real estate agents make is they put leads into their database, and that's all it is. It's a place to hold their leads. That's the base. They don't actually do anything. There's no follow up calls, there's no action plan. And I think one of the biggest problems I see in real estate is so many people are trying to automate the sales process. You have to realize something. Sales is about getting people to like you, trust you. If you can get people to like you and trust you, they're going to want to work with you. But if you're not calling people, they're going to go use somebody else. So I know when you started calling through, I think it was like 500 or 600 leads that I found in your database that you had never called.
yeah,
How painful was that? Call after call, hearing people that you actually housed in your database that decided to use someone else for only one reason. You didn't call
yeah. I would say it was very painful, very
them.
very painful, because it just takes that little extra minute or so a day just to follow up with that person, and for knowing somebody else got paid. And I always think about this. I try to provide the best service possible, and maybe when they purchased that home or sold that home, they probably didn't have, the best service. So that's the way I see it. So it was very painful. So I was like, man, I can't do that again.
Well, I think it's just a reminder, I think, for every single real estate out here that understand is that everybody is calling your leads. If
Yeah.
you're not calling those leads, I promise you there is some other agent in the process of calling. And that's why it's so important. I just started working with a new client last week, and I'm looking, and they would call a person and then set another call for a week. And it's funny because I would take that same person, put them in my daily follow up, and I would call them 2 to 3 times a day. So if they're calling them once a week and I'm calling them 21 times a week from different phone numbers, who has a better chance of getting a hold of that person?
Well, you absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest things I see a lot of real estate agents is you all are so focused on making the first contact. I made 50 contacts. I made 70 contacts. Well,
Yeah.
how many of those contacts were made through lead follow up? Because you have to understand something. For most agents, 95% of all of your business is going to come from lead follow up. Only 5% of the time are you going to pick up a phone and someone's going to say, come over and list, or I'm going to buy a property today. It's all about long-term lead follow-up. So why do you think that in the previous 3 years, you never got that part of the business down? Because it's obviously, in my opinion, it's one of the single most important parts, lead follow-up, because 95% of all of your business comes from it.
I'll be honest. I feel like it was maybe a waste of time a bit, at times, because it's like, hey, I want to just focus on the people that are ready now, ready to sell now, ready to purchase now. So that kind of made it. I feel like it was a waste of time, but now seeing it is like that's a gold mine right there.
Right. So what is it like now? Because I know me and you have been working together in handling our skills, working on objections. What has it been like the last 2 months going back into the marketplace with better skills? Because to me, skills is one of the most important things that I started working on with any real estate agent. Because you have to understand something. If you don't have skills in the market we're in right now, it's like going out to fight someone with a machine gun and you have a rubber knife. So what was it like to go back into the marketplace and have skills, have weapons and tools that you could use to obviously get business?
I would say it was amazing. So far, I went from like having one escrow, right? Because I was so used to like maybe two or three at a time, and I opened 9 escrows and got 2 listings with practicing the scripts and being more intentional. I know your thing is being having intention. So every time, even if like I'm just calling again, just having that intention, squeezing that. I like to call it squeezing a little extra juice, right? Asking them that question, those extra questions, to get you to the finish line.
But I want you to think about that. When we started, you had one escrow,
Yeah,
and now 2 months later, you have nine.
yeah,
I mean,
9.
about that. I want you to think about if you actually did all the things that we're working on right now, that's a completely different life.
Yeah,
When you think about getting 6, 7, 8, 9 escrows consistently, what goes through your mind? Not just the money you make, but the impact you have on your family, your community. What does
mhm.
that feel like when you think about being able to scale out what we're working on right now?
I would say it's something big, right? Something big. Being able to invest in, my one of my soon to be goals is going to be investing in real estate. I would say that's going to help out a lot. There's going to be a lot of funds. I know you and I spoke about having an assistant, being able to, spend money to make more money. I
Yeah,
would say is where I'm seeing it.
because that's one of the first things I try to get everyone that I work with is to make sure that number one, if you don't have an assistant, we get an assistant. At some point, we need to get a buyer agent, and then from there, we start to get an ISA and then potentially another buyer agent. Because what you're doing is you're buying more time for yourself. Because again,
Absolutely.
a lot of agents don't realize is that 80% of your day should be prospecting, lead follow up, going on appointments, and negotiating contracts. So let me ask you, knowing that now, if you don't have an appointment and you don't have anything to negotiate, what is it like having to get back on the phone for the second shift? Because I teach everyone that I work with that you have a shift from 7:30 to 12, and then you have another shift from 2 to 6 or 2 to 7, depending on your goal. So, how hard was that for you to get used to getting back in and doing the same thing you did early in the morning all over again?
I would say, it was a little bit hard transition because it's like what you had said, doing wasting time in that admin, right? Always having to find something to do, like, oh, let me work on this. But so far as like it's a routine now. It's like I tell Jose that second shift time, and then we start calling. So it's exciting because we know that just making those extra calls, some money's to be made there.
What is it like watching you and him kind of grow at the same time together?
I would say it's kind of feels like when we just started, right? Yeah, we both took a fast start when because we started the same week at the office we're at now, that same week. So it's pretty exciting, right? He has his success, I have my success, so it feels like we're starting all over again, but now on the right path.
Right. So tell me, before we started working together, what made you decide to reach out? Because
I'll be
obviously, so many people don't understand that. I mean, if you want to get ahead faster, you have to find somebody that's doing what you want and then pay them to do it. So, what made you at this stage of your life with one pending decide to invest money?
I would say, well, I started seeing Jose having his success as well. And where I was getting coached at in the past, it just felt like very repetitive. And I'll be honest, I would hear your conversations. He would play them for me, and I'm like, man, this guy is goated. So I would be like, the way you explain things, the way you actually were like super real about what he needed to do. And it's like, I'd rather pay a little extra money than what I was paying already. And I was
Yeah.
like, at first it's scary, right? But then it's like it's something that sooner or later I have to do.
Yeah, I think people don't understand the number one thing you can invest in. It's not a stock, it's not Bitcoin, it's investing in yourself. That was
Absolutely.
one of the things that for me, fortunately, is that early on in my career, I got right into coaching literally, a month in the business. And I remember at that time, I believe it was like $1,000 back in 2,000, which probably today is like 3 or 4,000. And it's just like, I didn't have the money, but I realized if I didn't find a way to have the money, I never would have the money. And I see so many people that never get what they want because they're not actually willing to invest in themselves.
Exactly. And I think that was my fear as well. Like, oh man, it sounds like a lot, but I was like, you know what? Like you said, in order for you to make money, you have to invest money in yourself. And I hear a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. And they always talk about you investing in yourself is like the main thing you have to do when you're trying to succeed.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I started working with Jose, we were talking and he gave me this call and I heard the call and I was like, go to the door. And he
Yeah.
was like, what? I'm like, go to the door and call me. So he literally calls me. He's like, I'm at the door. And I'm like, go knock on the door. And I told him what to say. And he went in and he got the appointment to come back the next day. And it was
Yeah.
just like a perfect thing of someone that was so uncomfortable, because, when I coach people, I tell you all to do a lot of things that make you uncomfortable. But the fact that literally, I'll never forget, he was like, when do you want me to do it? I was like, get up out of your chair, get in your car and call me at the door. And he's like, you really want me to go to the door? But I think, that's part of someone that's going to get success versus people that don't. Is how coachable are you? Why do you think you're so coachable?
I would say because the way I see it is like this person's been there, done that, right? They've probably messed up just the same way I have. And now seeing that you're actually a real deal, like it's not like these gurus you see online. So it's like if obviously they're coaching because they've been there, and that's going to save me a lot of time, right? So that's why I, took the leap of faith and just say, hey, I'd rather get coached by Mike.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
funny thing is, so many coaches now, they want to tell people like what they want to hear. I mean, I hear so
Yeah.
many people telling people to make 20 and 30 contacts a day. And I'm here to tell you, if you're making 20 or 30 contacts a day, you're probably going to lose 30 to 40% of your business over the next 6 months because the market is changing. You know what I mean? I had a team meeting on Friday, and I think one of the biggest powers that you have in business is anticipation. I can already see with the election and just the world going on is the next couple of months, they're going to be tougher than what we've had previously. So it's important that you start doubling down. So I told everyone in my team, no more days off. Monday through Saturday, we're going to go in and we're going to work a full day. And then on Sunday, we're going to come in and we're going to do a half day. And it's funny because I could see that when they looked at me, they're thinking, is he going to do it? And one of the most important parts of leadership is a leader does it first. So I told them, I will be in there Saturday. I will be in there Sunday. Now, do I have to be there? No. But I know that if I'm in there, my team is going to be in there. And part of being a leader is to always make sure that you're doing it first. So at this stage of your career, what makes you want to push beyond where you're already at?
I would say just there's no limits, right? There's no limits. There's a lot more work to do, and I feel like at the age I'm at, and let's say with all the recommendations and the advice and the coaching you give me, once I hit a certain age, I'm pretty set off, and that's my goal, right? My goal in life is being able to say like, hey, I did what I was supposed to do, and in the future, like everybody in my family is gonna have a way better life, right? I think that's my, I guess you could say, thing that helps me chase these dreams.
Yeah, well, I think so many people forget is that, every couple generations, the one comes along. And when I say the one that comes along and changes like the generations from their time on. That's one of the things for me. It's getting older is you start looking at like legacy. Like with my own kids, I've got 3 daughters. I want them to think that the lifestyle we have is normal. I want to put every other person behind me to make sure that they understand like this is the level that we're playing at. So what is it like to come in and have the opportunity to be the one that changes all of the future generations? Because
Yeah.
when you get older, how old are you now?
26, just turned 26 this year.
I promise, when you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, you start to look at the word legacy and understanding that like the impact that you could have on your family, on your friends, and all of the other generations behind you. What is that like to think about that?
I would say it's very, I guess you could say, I always picture myself like kind of like the golden child, right? Because it's always been, limitations on this, limitations on that. But knowing that I can change, it just feels amazing, right? And it's just, I know it's just a long way, but I'm here for it, right? But I'm very excited that I could be able to use my persona and change people's lives, but at the same time making money.
Okay, so knowing what you know now, if you could go back to yourself on day one and you could tell them two pieces of advice, what two pieces of advice would you give yourself day one, or any new agent that's getting in the business or someone that's struggling, that you think would help them grow their business faster?
I would say get on the phone for the one, and then uh, two would be only listen to people that are actually doing the business. Showing the I guess you can say the closing the amount of deals, showing the lifestyle you want to have. Right, don't listen to any outsiders, because, like you said, I feel like this generation, especially now with all these gurus that come up, right? They only tell you the things that you want to hear. Just listen to the people that are actually putting the numbers up, right? So I think people like yourself is a great example. Listening to people like yourself and making sure that you stay consistent, I think would be the third thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wish it was that easy. I mean, I wish we could literally buy a bunch of email lists and just send emails out and
Yeah,
sit back on our couch with our feet up and people would call us. But the reality
absolutely.
is, if you want to sell real estate in high volume, you got to get on the phone. You got to call people. And, I think so many agents, I think one of the people don't realize the ultimate protection in real estate is volume. You have to realize something. If a year from now you have 20 deals closed over 2 months, you've got 20 deals under contract, and you just took 10 listings. If one deal fell out, how do you think you'd feel?
Hey, on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, when you don't have deals and you don't have pendings and you don't have income, it's like every no, every deal falling out, it hurts. And that's why it's so important for so many agents to understand that if you don't make a sacrifice at some point in your career to actually put the work in, the sacrifice is you got to make that sacrifice for the rest of your life. I tell you and everybody that you either sacrifice this portion of your life so that you can have the life you want in the future, or you just get to sacrifice forever.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. When you think about taking time and putting the work in over the next 3 to 4 years to get a business where potentially you sell 80 or 100 houses, what is it like mindset wise to know that you're just in the beginning stages of becoming that kind of person?
I would say more than anything, humbling, right? I would say it's very humbling experience of me. Hey, I'm barely getting started. I'm barely getting a taste of this. So I would say it's very exciting at the same time and humbling, because I know that the potential that I have, and I know it's a long way to go, but at the same time, it's like I know that's something that stuck to me when you said, I don't have any family right now, right? Like kids, a wife. But if I don't make that sacrifice now, I'm gonna start sacrificing their time once I do have that time. So that stuck up to me. That stuck to me like very.
So many people, especially that are younger, they don't understand. You either steal time from yourself and you give it to your family, or you steal time from your future family. If
Yeah,
you put the work and the time in, see, the one thing that I think so many agents don't understand is most agents always overestimate what they can do in 6 months or a year, but they completely underestimate what they can do in 5 years or a decade of consistently putting the work in. I mean, there's not a person that I coach that if you actually did the work that you're supposed to do, that in 5 to 7 years, you could make $1 million in a year. Because a
yeah,
million dollars in a year isn't hard in real estate. The hard part is the consistency making the calls, consistently following up on your database, consistently working on your skills, and more importantly, consistently doing it on the days that you don't feel like it. So let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at this stage of your career in doing it on the days that you don't feel like it? Because that's probably the one opportunity that I see so many agents struggle with, is they do work based on how they feel, not based on their goals and outcomes they want.
I would say about a solid seven. Because there's still times that I'm like, man, I really want to make calls, but then I always kind of go back to square one. Like, hey, I got to do this, right? I know that this is what's gonna, you know, get me closer to where I want to be, and also that one call that you didn't do that day could be a contract for another agent. So I rather just get on the phone, even if I don't feel like it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think so many people don't understand about successful agents is there are days where you just doubt yourself.
Yeah,
me ask you something. I mean, as you go through the process of skilling up and improving, what do you do on the days where you just look in the mirror and you're just like, I don't think I can do it?
I would say I just think about, again, going back to the way I see it is like if I go back to my family, say, hey, I can't pay you this month, right? For I can't pay that car payment of yours, or I can't take you out to that, pay for that trip. So I'm like, you know what? That goes into my mind. I'm like, no, I can't be, I guess you can say, an average Joe anymore, right? I know I have my responsibilities, so I have to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. Some days I wake up at 5:30, my eyes are tired. I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to do it. And the days that I feel like that, I'll like look at my wife sleeping. I'll like walk into my kids' room and I'll see them sleeping, and it's just like understanding that all of the people that benefit by me doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do. And I think for most real estate agents, it's the most important component is making sure that every single day you do the things that you're supposed to do, regardless of how you feel. So let me ask you, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, if they had any questions for you, tell them how they can get a hold of you.
So my phone number is 909-258-6797. Instagram is alfredo.bc9. So you guys could contact me there at any time.
Well, it was so nice having you. I can't wait to have you back on next year so that everyone can see what kind of a transformation you've made. I mean, going from 1 to 9, I mean, you're absolutely killing it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Mike.
All right, I appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here.
Perfect. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.